Everyone for showing up today. Thank you, Mayor, for attending, Council Member for attending. We have a brief presentation here that we'll go through. I'll go through some introductions. We'll go through the background of this project. We're going to talk about the sewer study and design plans, and then we'll talk about the pavement study and design plans. We'll give you a little bit about the benefits of this project. And then we're going to get into the construction plan, talk a little bit about some of the timelines. We'll talk to you about some good ways of communicating with you. We have a little brief survey you can take and let us know the best ways to communicate with you. And then we'll open it up for questions. And then again, we'll end up back out in the hallway for some one-on-one open house content. So as far as introduction goes, we have a handful of people in the house that will be speaking tonight and others that are just here assisting. We have with the City of Vista, Jeff Callentine, Pat Dowes, who's one of our city engineers. With NL&L Concrete, they're going to be the guys that are out in the streets doing a lot of this work. Sitting up front here, we have Chad and Mike. If you guys want to raise your hands. So we also have with HGM, Bill Glissman. Bill was one of the design engineers on this project, and then Paula Pogie, Paula's over here. She's going to be the project manager on this, construction manager. With Trek, who did a lot of the studies for the sewer and the pavement, we have Brock over here. And then myself, I am a public engagement moderator. So, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Pat, who's going to give us a brief introduction on the background.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Pat Dow, City Engineer. Thank you again for everybody coming tonight. If you were here November of 21, you've probably seen this slide before, and you guys live this slide every day. This was SID number 4, Sarpy County, built approximately 1959 to 1960. As you guys are well aware, it's been there for a few days. Back in, I'd say, early mid-2010s is when the city started looking into and putting in their program on the understanding that the surfacing of the pavement was getting poor. We understood through our jettings and things like that the sanitary sewer line needed some help as well. So in 2019, we went out for our professional RFP. We selected HGM Associates and Trek Design Group as the design engineers for this project. Went through the study, understood what the ins and outs of the project needed to be. I just understood what the next steps may be. We hired them back in 2021 to do the final design as they worked through. And then we met with the neighborhood November of 2021 at 60% design to kind of give everybody an update on the project, to show everybody where we were at and what the next steps were going to be. So here we go, we get into there, we get into 2022. The bidding climate was a little bit less than we were anticipating as far as where we ended up. We bid it in February 2022, had no bidders. We bid it in May. We had one bidder. It was substantially higher than what we were estimating. And we bid it again in October, and we had 2 bids, and that's where we came with NL&L Concrete, who became the low responsive bidder. We have signed them on contract, and they are ready to go. But yeah, this, basically, I think you guys know the neighborhood pretty well. 72nd Street, Harrison Street. To the south is G. Stanley. To the east is the sports complex. And like I said, as we explained then, explain now, the goal of this project is to extend the sewer life 50 years and to rehab the pavement. They will talk about a little bit more on the background. You'll hear some terminology in there. Laterals versus public main. The lateral is what connects to the public main from the main to the house. And so that'd be the service lateral. The main or trunk line, you may hear that as well. That's the main generally in the middle of the street. I will turn it over to Brock for the sanitary sewer.
All right, my name's Brock Barron with Trek Design Group. We had a couple roles in this project. One, we did a lot of the sewer analysis, doing the televising of the sewers, inspecting manholes, things like that, to determine the condition of it. From there, we rolled into the rehab recommendations, and then from there, we got into the design of it. As Pat mentioned, you know, there's two types of sewers. You have the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer. The way I describe it is storm sewer, if it rains, goes into the curb inlets, runs right to the river. The sanitary sewer, when you flush your toilet, that goes to the treatment plant, gets cleaned, and then into the river. So those are the two different types of systems. This project dealt with the sanitary sewers. This kind of shows you a map of where everything is at. What we found during the inspection, just lots of defects, just cracks, broken pipe, lots of roots. When we got in there, we noticed a lot of issues with people's laterals where there's roots inside of it. Originally, we weren't going to address those, but once we got into it, we realized that it was more severe. So we're taking the laterals, we're going to remove and replace the laterals out to outside of the pavement. So as you can see, there's lots of issues. There's offset joints, some objects that are stuck in there. That's somebody's jetter nozzle. You know, just more of the same lateral defects, a lot of offset joints. So basically the pipes are disconnecting a little bit, so there's offsets there. So as you can see, there's cracks and broken pipes, things like that. There's actually a utility that bored through one of the pipes. So what we have is to address this stuff. Oh, and here's some of the manhole issues. Just lots of work that needs to be done to patch those up. What's happening is you're getting I&I, inflow and infiltration, clean water that's getting into the sewer system. So if we can fix those things, that's going to reduce that water getting into the clean water that's getting into the system that we're paying to clean. So as far as the design of the sewers, this is kind of more of the same. So what we've recommended is cured in place pipe. Basically, it's like a sleeve that we're putting in the pipe. If there's cracks, small holes in the pipes, things like this, the sleeve will go inside and basically it'll reaffirm the pipe integrity. So it'll give you that strength. It'll cut out the inflow and infiltration, you know, water getting in through those cracks, things like that. So, and then again, we're going to remove and replace the laterals. So your private lateral will replace from the main to the outside of the pavement, and then once pavement's in, we'll come back and line the mains. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bill to talk about the pavement.
Thanks, Brock. I'm Bill Glissman with HGM Associates, and we did the pavement study and design for the project. And so initially, we did a study. We went through all the streets, took a look at them, used a rating program to go ahead and do that. And as you can see here, most of the streets were in the fair to poor condition. And actually, this was like several years ago, so maybe more of those fair ones. To determine what the pavement thicknesses were. And there were some areas where the concrete base that's under those asphalt overlays is pretty thin too. And so in those areas, we were going to actually have to replace the whole street completely to go ahead and address those issues. Another thing that we have out there is like all the ADA ramps and stuff are not compliant with current standards. And so as part of this project, we're going to go through and replace all the curb ramps to make those ADA compliant. And as you can see, a lot of those are kind of tight to the corner. There's some utilities and stuff there. We tried to configure the curb ramps to not take right-of-way in most cases, but we will end up having to relocate some of the poles and fire hydrants to do that. So under the design plan, as I had mentioned, there were some streets that were fairly thin. Most of that was in 9th Street as well as Emmeline. Those had some really poor streets in there and thin sub-bases. So we're going to go ahead, tear that pavement out completely and replace it with a new concrete street through there. All the other areas that are highlighted in red there, those will go ahead and be milled down to the concrete subbase. So all the asphalt that was on the roadway will be taken off. We'll go ahead and assess the concrete base underneath of that and make any repairs to that as needed, and then come back and resurface that with a new asphalt overlay on that. So all the streets will be upgraded with a uniform thickness and paving on it. And so kind of the design plan of how they're going to progress through this as they're working. So the first thing they're going to do is end up removing pavement out there to do the sewer lateral repairs. So they'll go ahead and cut a trench, replace the sewer lateral. They'll do sewer laterals. If they're doing your sewer lateral, they'll do that in one day. So you'll be out of sewer service for a day. They're going to do, maybe a couple houses a day as they progress through there doing sewer laterals. Once they do that, repair the sewer laterals, they'll go ahead and replace the pavement where the sewer laterals were, or fill those back up and put temporary rock in there. They'll go ahead and mill the streets after the sewer laterals are done. They'll go back and do the patching, as I mentioned. And then once that's done, they'll go ahead and do the overlay in that. And then at the end of the project, they'll go ahead and do that sewer liner. So after all the work has been done throughout the whole area, they'll come through and do the sewer liner. This is on the area that's basically 69th and Emmeline. And so in that area, that's where they're going to take out the pavement. So first off, they'll do the same thing. They'll go ahead and trench out, do the sewer laterals and things. But then ultimately, after they get through that, they're going to pull out the street pavement completely. We've got some temporary rock surfacing that will be going in to help people get access through this process. We want to try and keep it as, I know it's going to be disruptive for a time when they're in each of the sections, but try and keep your access to your property as much as we can. Ultimately then, they'll go in and put a new pavement in there, and then after that they'll put the sewer lining in. So that's what's happening in those areas. And then as I mentioned, there's some sewer, for the curb ramps and things, they'll be going and doing some relocations of fire hydrants and relocations of the power poles there. Or actually, it's mainly the street lights. There's some power poles that actually have transmission lines and things on them. Those are going to stay in place. It's mainly the street lights that are at the corner, and so they'll relocate those. So it might be that those get relocated when they're not working on your street. MUD or OPPD will be in to do that stuff prior to us getting into some of those areas. So then, obviously, the benefits of that is to get a new roadway in there, get new surfacing, so that way we can extend the life in the neighborhood and you don't have to deal with potholes and things like that over time. Get ADA compliant curb ramps, and then also lining the sewers, so that'll make sure that the sewer infrastructure is good. There'll be no issues with root infiltration and things like that. So next is the construction schedule, how we're going to get this done. The project timeline is we're going to start next week doing work out there, and that'll begin the phase 1 of the improvements. And they'll work through November, and that's by that end of November, they'll have those areas that they're working on this year. The sewer laterals will be done, the pavement will be replaced and everything, and opened back up. Over the winter, they may be doing some sewer lateral replacements as they go to kind of get ahead of things, but that's all kind of weather permitting and that. So that may be going on in the winter in some areas. And then ultimately in April next year, we'll begin again on the second phase and do the rest of the neighborhood. So by the end of 2024, the whole neighborhood will be completed. So here's kind of the construction phases. So the red is phase 1 and the blue is phase 2. And so they're going to go ahead and start down in area K first, move through N and D, and then up through L and M, and then finish out with J. And that will get about 55% of the pavement done within the neighborhood in that year. Then the next year, they'll go ahead and start working in H, work down through I, J, or G, F Street, or F, and then up 69th and Emmeline through A, B, and C, and then get that completed in phase 2. And with that, I guess on the communication portion.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mitch Beaumont. I'm the communication manager for the city. So it's my mic and I can't clip it on my shirt. So as Bill was saying, realize this is a big project and there's going to be a lot of work, a lot of interruptions. So what we want to try to do is offer as many updates as we can throughout this project. So what I have is a survey. It's a one-question survey. If you want to, if your phone's capable of opening that, you can point your camera at that funny-looking box and it'll open a survey. But I'm thinking maybe the best thing to do is a very quick show of hands. So what we want to do is try to figure out how would you prefer to receive updates on this project? Was it by email? Is it by Facebook? Is it by Nextdoor? We can somewhat target Nextdoor, but not completely to your neighborhood. Just a website. We can post updates on the website. We can push an email to you. So to help us deliver those updates as best we can to you, how many of you would prefer an email? We're thinking probably twice a week. Okay, several. Okay, and we gathered emails tonight, correct? So that's pretty easy. And then what we'll probably do is then we'll provide that same information on the website. So if you want to go back and check those updates throughout the week or whatever, it's a copy paste. That's pretty simple. So we're thinking hopefully twice a week we'll give you an update on what's coming for the week and then where the crews end at the end of the week. And hopefully that gives everybody the information that you need. And then of course the guys on the street will be your day-to-day contacts for questions and everything else. So between the guys on the street and the communication staff, we'll try to make sure you're informed. So does email work for everybody for the most part? Is that okay? Okay, so we'll do that.
I think it's
easy
important to know that this will be a very personal project, so we will be updating you guys verbally quite often. So the project team will be on site, they'll be knocking on doors. Feel free to come out and stop and talk to Peggy or any of them if you have questions about kind of, Mitch can kind of do the major phasing stuff and as we're changing, but as we're going house to house and lateral and things like that, they will be coordinating directly with you guys in the field and helping you out in that manner. So it's not just going to be, an email like, hey, tomorrow your yard's going to get tore up. We'll be a little more formal when it comes to that, a little more personal. So
Absolutely. Thanks for saying that, Jeff, because he's right. The updates coming from communication will be sort of bigger picture. Coming from the crews will be much more personal, much more regular. So
yeah.
You were talking about putting the pipe from the sewer to the edge of the concrete, and the guy that we were talking to was saying that it was going to go to the sidewalk.
that is way outside my expertise, so I'm going to let somebody.
And actually, what we're trying to do is get the sewer lateral out of from underneath the pavement. So we're going to actually be taking that connection in that area that's between the back of curb and the sidewalk area in there. Right. Yeah, because they want to have new pipe underneath all the new pavement that's going down. Right. It may end up getting into the sidewalk too. It kind of depends upon how deep things are at that point and stuff too. So, and it's okay, and that's already been included in what the work is, that they'll replace any of the sidewalk that they need to with new sidewalk if they need to get into it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jeff, is OPPD and MUD, I think you guys' communication will be fine, but is OPPD and MUD, when they're coming out to do that work in their yards, they seem to be a little more, let's go do it today, or we've got them on notice due to.
Yeah, they were part of our pre-con meeting just the other day, so we've got representatives from all those utility companies, and we'll make sure that they're doing their due diligence with you folks.
I was curious, the driveway, it's kind of like a triangular ridge from the street to the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those in the subdivision are busted up. They're filled with asphalt, and every time the machine comes by, the broom machine, it loosens the asphalt up, and pretty soon you got a pothole they just fill 2 or 3 weeks ago. And what I was wondering if filling replacing the street, are they going to replace the connector from the street to the sidewalk?
So all the driveways that are on 69th and Emmeline Street, all of those driveways from the sidewalk out to the street, that's all going to get replaced under that.
Which is the approach.
In the other areas, depending upon, like some of them, the sewer laterals are actually under the driveways, so they're going to end up needing to be taken up to replace the sewer lateral into that point. And so those will get replaced too. And it kind of depends. I know there's a lot of different conditions. Like you said, there's asphalt built up and stuff in some of those. And so we're going to assess those as we're going through to see how much it's going to match in with what the improvements are going to be. And if some of those are deficient in doing that, then some of those are going to get replaced too. So I can't say that 100% of them are going to get replaced, but there's a good majority of driveways that.
One other quick question. Is the curb, how much higher is what's the standard curb? And is it going to be standard, or is it going to be the height of the dirt between the sidewalks and the curb?
The standard curb would be 6 inches deep. Now, with all the overlays and stuff, some of those, it may have been milled down at once, but they've been just putting overlays on top of overlays. And so I know some of the curbs are, maybe a couple inches, if that. And so we're going to mill off all that asphalt that's been down. So it'll get down below that, where that existing 6-inch curb was. Then they'll go through, do those repairs. We'll do an overlay. And so you'll get back to more of a standard curb after that, as opposed to the way it is now out there.
Any of the damaged curbs on just the overlay areas, are they going to get replaced as needed?
There are some damaged curbs out there, yeah, and we do have some quantities in there for repairing some of those. We're not going to be able to go through and do all of them, but most of the really bad ones and stuff, we've included that in there. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. About 5 years ago, I think, we had our sewer replaced, and they went all the way out to the main. So mine won't be replaced, right?
I guess.
did Burton, and they did that insert.
Uh-huh. And I guess it really depends. I don't know. We may not go, if you've got new pipe that's going there, I'm not sure. Sometimes those connections that they make out there may be some issue with that disjointed and stuff that may affect the liner. It might be that we do fix that, but we don't go as far back as maybe some of the others and stuff.
We have your address, we're going to work through that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's, yeah.
And I think there were some that were in good shape, that if they looked good, if we were able to see up the pipe, then we weren't going to replace it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I paid to have them replaced to the sidewalk.
To the sidewalk?
To the sewer.
From the sidewalk to the sewer, or from the
No,
house
all
to
the
the
way
sidewalk?
all the way from the house to the sewer.
Yeah.
To the main?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure we get your address and communication, we'll make sure we can,
Mm-hmm.
before you.
You'll notice it when you go to take it out.
Yeah, just make sure we get your address, phone number, so we can confirm that. We want to make sure, like I said, if it's in good shape, then. then we're ahead of the game. So.
Yeah, because Trek has televised the sewer all the way through, so we can see what that connection looks like too. So if we've got your address, we can figure out what that connection looks like and stuff, and if it needs to be done or not. So,
Would this be a good time to possibly do a liner to the house, to work everything together? If you have the old clay pipe still, it's still.
right, I guess once these are done, if you, that would be once our stuff is done, and that would be a good time for you to go ahead and do any improvements on your lateral too. Yep.
Significant cost portion of your guys' lateral replacements getting into the street. So I think it'd be a great time if you were ever thinking about doing something with your lateral to do it when we get done, because then you're not gonna have to make that point connection from the main under the pavement. So you're just gonna have to make it to the back of the curb, which is a benefit to you.
And from what I recall, the main issue that we could see from the main was those first couple of connections off of the lateral. So it would behoove us as we're there to replace that, but going all the way up, we don't necessarily have all that data, but.
Right.
Is there anybody we can contact before because I know for a fact that the gas lines and the water